transferred to Manchester United today.
Football predictions.
If Rangers nil, Ipswich Town 1.
A football prediction.
Hi, it's Peter Guest and the Moose, and we're here for another episode of the FootballPredictions.net podcast covering Premier League games for the 31st of August to the 1st of September 2024. What do we have today, Moose?
Yeah, we've got some really interesting games coming up in the Premier League. We're starting at Arsenal taking on Brighton. Wolverhampton goes to Nottingham Forest. Brentford takes on Southampton. Everton takes on Bournemouth. Ipswich takes on Fulham. Leicester takes on Aston Villa. Man City travels to West Ham. Chelsea takes on Crystal Palace. Newcastle takes on Tottenham Hotspur. And finally, Liverpool travels to Manchester United.
Big one. You can also see the details for all these matches that we're about to discuss in the podcast here on our website, footballpredictions.net, along with fixtures from just about every other football competition in the world.
And on our website, it will show you where to watch the games on local broadcast channels, plus video streaming services, as well as match odds from local bookmakers.
Yes, indeed. And if you look in the description of this podcast episode, you can find direct clickable links to all the matches that we're about to discuss. So you can go there and vote on what you think is going to happen, see all the odds and everything like that. Look in the description of the podcast and you'll see all those clickable links. Geolocation and live streaming rules apply. 18 plus, gamble aware. Let's get straight into it with Arsenal, currently third with a good, really perfect record, versus Brighton, who also have it, who are currently just above them in second. Kicks off on Saturday, 31st of August at 12:30. Who would have thought we would have had such a great clash so early on? Go to footballpredictions.net for the local kickoff time, betting odds and broadcast streaming options available in your area. You can watch it in the UK on Discovery Plus app. TNT Sports have got it as well on TNT Sports 1 and TNT Sports Ultimate.
Yes, and as for the two teams, great start to the season for both teams, like Arsenal winning their first game at home to Wolves 2-0. We had that outcome. We also had the outcome at Aston Villa, including the goals market. No both teams to score under 2.5 goals, and Arsenal to win that game. Arsenal beat Aston Villa. As we know, they beat them 2-0 thanks to those goals from Trossard and Partey in the second half. Brighton. Wow, what a start for Brighton. A big result at the beginning of the season at Everton. They beat Everton 3-0 quite convincingly. They then followed that up with a great win last week at home to Man United. 2-1, that very late goal by João Pedro in injury time secured them that 2-1 win. So yeah, great start for them. And in the EFL Cup, actually, Brighton had an EFL Cup game midweek. They beat Crawley 4-0. We had the outcome there correct. So yeah, looking at the prediction for this one, we're looking at a tight game potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be tight. Brighton have been excellent. Arsenal have been excellent as well. So you can see it'll be close. Of course, Arsenal being at home, they've turned that place really, the Emirates, into a fortress. And yeah, I think they are a little bit open as well. So they probably will concede as well as getting the win, though, Arsenal. So we've got both teams to score prediction for this one of yes. Get odds of that of 1.8. But if you want the Arsenal win, you can only get 1.36 at the moment from the bookies, so not being very generous with that one, but you can see why. Regarding the correct score, we've gone for 2-1 to the Arsenal, not 1-0 to the Arsenal, 2-1 to the Arsenal, and you can get odds of that of 10. So I think that's pretty worth a look at, though. Looking at our poll currently on the site, 75% of you think that Arsenal will get the win. That's pretty huge, pretty convincing. And only 13% Brighton, and the rest like a draw. So let's see. 2-1 to Arsenal is what we think. Next up, we've got Nottingham Forest, currently in 7th, to take on Wolves, who are 19th, not doing too well at the moment. Wolves kicks off on Saturday, 31st of August, 3 o'clock local time. Find your local kickoff time, game odds, and available broadcast streaming channels for this one on footballpredictions.net, of course.
Yes, and as for the two teams, Nottingham Forest, they started their season with a draw at home to Bournemouth. There was a game where we actually had both teams to score as our prediction, and it ended 1-1. Last weekend at Southampton, Nottingham Forest picked up the first win of the season one of the matches that they would probably expect to win against these promoted teams in order to stay up themselves. They beat Southampton 1-0, so a narrow win for Forest there. And again, we had the goals market correct. We had under 2.5 goals in that game. Midweek, Forest did play EFL Cup game midweek. They played Newcastle. It's actually a 1-1 draw. Eventually they went out on penalties because it goes straight to penalties in case of a draw. But yeah, Newcastle went through in that one. So yeah, decent start for Forest. Now Wolves, they've had a tricky start to the season because they've had to play Arsenal and Chelsea. But I think the home game against Chelsea will probably worry them a little bit, because they fell to a 6-2 defeat. We did predict Chelsea to win that game. But yeah, not by as many as 6-2. But yeah, the outcome was correct. In terms of the first game of the season, they were Arsenal, and I don't think anyone would have anticipated Wolves to pick anything from that game. Arsenal won that game 2-0, so we had the outcome again correct. Now, Wolves did turn it around midweek in the EFL Cup. They played Championship side Burnley. We had 2-1. Wolves beat Burnley 2-0. So yeah, going into this game, we think Wolves may struggle again.
Yeah, I think it's funny because you've got Wolves coming up against a Nuno-led Nottingham Forest, and Nuno's done a pretty good job. I did watch the EFL Cup game last night, which was they put up a good fight for us, and in the end they ended up going out against Newcastle on penalties, but I thought they were pretty impressive. Yeah. Anyway, we think in this game that Forest will actually win. We've got, if you look at the odds for just a win, you can get those at 2.05 in decimal. But we think it'll be close, like you said, and under 2.5 goals is our tip for this. And you can get odds of that of 2. So that's about the same. Regarding a correct score, we're going for a 1-0 Forest win. Wolves, there's a bit of speculation as well. I mean, they've sold some players already, but there's a bit of speculation in last night's EFL Cup game that João Gomes was also not playing. So there is speculation that he might be a target of Liverpool and or Tottenham. So we'll see what happens there. It'll have to happen in the next couple of days. But yeah, if he gets left out again, you would fear for Wolves. But I know they're also buying a Brazilian player as well. So hopefully that gets over the line. He's in place. So maybe it'll sort of cancel itself out. But we still think that it's Forest for the win. Regarding what people who are voting on our website think, 58% of people agree that Forest will grab the win, and only 16% like Wolves. Everybody else is in for the draw. So anyway, moving on, we've got Brentford, who are 13th, who take on Southampton, who are 16th at the moment. Kicks off on Saturday, 31st of August at 3 p.m. in the UK. Find your local kickoff time, game odds, and available broadcast streaming channels for this one, of course, on our page at footballpredictions.net.
Yes, and as for the two teams, Brentford was off to a winning start in the EPL because they beat Crystal Palace 2-1 in the first game of the season. A decent start for them. They did fall to a defeated Liverpool last week. We did predict that. We did predict them to lose that game. We lost 2-0. Equally, we predicted Brentford to go through in the EFL Cup midweek. They play at Colchester, so it was anticipated that they were going to win. They beat Colchester 1-0. So yeah, mixed start for Brentford, but I don't think you can take anything away from them. I think they're quite happy with those 3 points against Palace, and yeah, probably anticipated a loss at Liverpool. Now to Southampton, the promoted team. First game of the season, they fell to a 1-0 defeat at Newcastle, despite Newcastle playing with 10 men for most of the game. So they probably feel a little bit like they could maybe have got something from that one. And then second game of the season, another defeat, 1-0 at home to Forest. And we did have the under market correct in that one. Now midweek EFL Cup, they got the goal scoring going because they scored 5 at Cardiff, beat Cardiff 5-3. But I think those results in the EFL Cup, especially the early stages, doesn't really impact anything, neither form or whatever. It's usually a place where these teams will play their reserves. So don't put too much emphasis on that. And yeah, I think our prediction is also leading to another struggle for Southampton. Let's say it like that.
Yes, indeed. We think Brentford even though Ivan Toney seems to be off the menu for the moment, are going to easily get a win over Southampton, especially at home. We've actually gone for a 3-1 win for them here. And just so you know, start with the odds on that. Odds on the correct score of 3-1, 15. So that's pretty huge. What's not so huge is the prediction the odds for the prediction of full-time result for Brentford to win, 1.73. But actually, we've got another tip for this one, which is both teams to score. And you can get odds of that at 1.7. Not huge, but, I think most people agree that this will be a Brentford win. In fact, on our poll, which you can take part in on the page for this, find the clickable link in the description, 74% of people like Brentford for the win, and only 10% believe Southampton will get the away win. Maybe some of those are Southampton fans, I'm not sure, but the rest like a draw. Anyway, that's what we're going for. Next up, we've got the troubled Everton, who are currently rock bottom, who take on Bournemouth, who are 14th. This kicks off on Saturday, 31st at 3 o'clock, 31st of August, that is. Visit footballpredictions.net and find the page for this game to view the kickoff time, betting odds, and broadcast streaming channels tailored for your location for this match. This one is actually, if you're in the right geo, available also live streaming on Bet365. If you're new to them, watch that, stream it, using our bonus code FP365.
Yes, and as for the two teams, Everton, really bad start to the season, 3-0 home defeat to Brighton, and then followed up by a 4-0 defeat at Tottenham last weekend. So no goals yet for Everton, and conceded 7 already. So yeah, bottom of the EPL going into this game against Bournemouth. Now Everton did beat Doncaster midweek in the EFL Cup convincingly 3-0. We did predict the outcome of that one. We did also predict Everton to go down at Spurs last week, to be fair, and we had the over 2.5 goals market in that one correct as well. As to Bournemouth, I would say they'd probably be fairly happy with that start. But yeah, as a Bournemouth fan, if anyone watched the game against Newcastle, they would probably have felt they should have got more from that one. They had a disallowed VAR goal right into injury time, could have won it 2-1, but it ended 1-1. Now for the first game of the season, they had a 1-1 draw at Forest. And for our predictions, we actually had both teams to score in both of those games. So 2 1-1 draws and 2 both teams to score result. Bournemouth is out of the EFL Cup. They did have a tricky draw because they had to travel to West Ham. West Ham beat them 1-0. And we did predict Bournemouth to go down with a defeat in that game. So yeah, leading on to the prediction for this one, we think that Everton might get something finally.
Yeah, yes, I was actually at the Spurs game against Everton, and I have to say that I think Everton didn't really offer much at all. They were very flat, and no wonder their supporters were a bit annoyed at the end of it. Spurs did play very well, but I mean, it makes you wonder what the mentality is of Sean Dyche's team. But for this one, we think they might show a bit of heart. I mean, I know Bournemouth had the 2 draws, 2 1-1s actually in a row. And we think it's going to be headed down the same path again for this one. We think they will both score. We think Everton will get a point. And we think it's going to be 1-1. For turning for the odds to that, if you like 1-1 for a correct score, you can get that odds at 7 or 6-1. And for a draw, you can get quite good odds of 3.4. So that's something to consider. Regarding the both teams to score prediction, which is our tip, we think that one's probably the most likely. Odds of 1.67. Looking at our user poll, which you can find on the page for this on footballpredictions.net, 42% of people actually prefer the Everton home win, and only 25% of people think Bournemouth will get away with the win, with the rest of you voters, which is further, 34%, liking a draw. So actually more people like a draw than a Bournemouth win. Yeah. So let's see. 1-1 is what we think. Next up, we've got the newly promoted Ipswich Town, who are currently in 18th, who take on Fulham at Portman Road. This one is kicking off on Saturday, 31st of August at 3 p.m. For this game, footballpredictions.net provides your local kickoff time, all the betting odds and available viewing options. So go to the web page for it to see all that. Wow. Ipswich Town, eh?
Yeah. Now, what is not the greatest start to the season, but also very unfortunate draw in terms of fixtures for Ipswich. Ipswich started with a 2-0 home defeat to Liverpool. We predicted 2-1 to Liverpool in that game, so we were nearly bang on with the correct score, but we had the outcome correct. Now, last week, we actually predicted Ipswich to get a goal at the Etihad, and they went 1-0 up. So that was a really nice both teams to score prediction that we had correct there. Man City beat Ipswich 4-1. We had 3-1 for Man City. It was only to the very end that Man City got that fourth goal right before full time. So we nearly had the correct score in that one. But yeah, tricky start for Ipswich, who then also got knocked out of the EFL Cup to League Two side Wimbledon midweek. They lost on penalties. It was a 2-2 draw in full time. We did have both teams to score and over 2.5 goals in that game as well. So yeah, we've had We've actually had some decent predictions on Ipswich going into this game against Fulham. Now, Fulham, trip to Man United, not the easiest to start the season off with a trip to Old Trafford. Actually, Fulham did quite well in that game. Probably feel a bit unfortunate not to have got a point, but they went down 1-0. We did tip them to get beat in that game. We had a United win on the outcome. Then to the home game against Leicester, we had a 2-0 home win for Fulham, and Fulham beat Leicester 2-1. And yeah, so Fulham got 3 points on the board, and then midweek they went to Birmingham, beat them 2-0 in the EFL Cup. We predicted that outcome as well. So yeah, going into this one, look, Ipswich off to a tricky start, but they're playing Fulham here. They might fancy themselves with something, but it's also a game that Fulham need to win in order to keep some distance and build a bit of a distance to the relegation zone.
Yeah, and I think we don't hope that this is setting the pattern for Ipswich this season, but we do fancy Fulham to come away with the win here, and but we do think it'll be a very edgy, close game, and maybe a late winner in it for either team. But we think it's probably going to go to Fulham. They have got that extra Premier League experience, of course. We're going for 1-0 away to Fulham at Portman Road, and I tell you what, the odds of a 1-0 for Fulham is 10, which is pretty huge. Fulham to win, you can get odds of 2.3 at the moment, and our tip, which is under 2.5 as well, is odds of 2. Just looking at it all. No, yeah. But you know, it will be close. This is one I'm not sure I would want to take a bet on, because I think it might be, you know, Ipswich could get the goal, but look at our user poll. 25% of people only think Ipswich Town will get the home win. 61% of people agree with a Fulham away win, and the other 14% is at the moment are liking a draw. I'm not sure how you feel about that, Moose, but yeah, let's see how it plays out.
Let's see how it plays out.
Leicester, yeah, Leicester City, 15th at the moment, who have got a point. Take on Aston Villa, who are currently 12th. Kicks off on Saturday, 31st of August, 3 p.m. kickoff again. For this game, footballpredictions.net provides your local kickoff time, of course, betting odds and available viewing options.
Yes, and as for these two teams, Leicester got maybe a surprising point in the beginning of the season. They got a 1-1 draw at home to Spurs, hard-earned draw. We had predicted both teams to score in that game. So, yeah, it was a good point for Leicester, that one. But yeah, then they fell to that defeat at Fulham last week, and we did predict that. We predicted Fulham to beat Leicester in that game. Now, Leicester in the EFL Cup quite convincingly beat Tranmere at home midweek, and we had over 2.5 goals, Leicester to win. So that was a good prediction from our side in terms of that game, but also very predictable. Tranmere sort of lower down the league system. Now, Aston Villa started their season with a 2-1 win at West Ham, which was a great result, to be fair. We did have both teams to score and over 2.5 goals correct in that game. Then they fell to a defeat last week at home at Villa Park to Arsenal. It was a 2-0 win for Arsenal. Predicted that Arsenal were going to beat them 1-0. So we had the outcome under 2.5 and no both teams to score correct in that game. But yeah, mixed start. I mean, tricky also to obviously play Arsenal, one of the favourites to probably walk away with the championship. And equally for Leicester, this is their They bounced back into the Premier League straight away. And yeah, going into this game, it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, I know. It is going to be an interesting one. But, Leicester have got a very noisy stadium when things are going their way. But when they're not, and if they get silenced, it can be pretty quiet. And Villa, of course, want to bounce back after that defeat, home defeat as well to Arsenal. They will probably show their quality here, their chances, and we think they'll get the win. However, we do think both teams will score, and the odds on that are 1.7. For the Villa win, you can get 1.75, so not much in it between those two, but we do like a correct score. We're going for 2-1 to Villa, and you can get odds on that of actually 9, which is quite realistic, I think, and 2-1 being a very common score as well. Just looking at our poll on our page on footballpredictions.net, 64% of you currently like Villa to win away, and Leicester only 29%, so 7% people liking the draw. Next, we have West Ham, who are 9th at the moment, who take on already league-leading Manchester City, who are obviously top, and kicks off at London Stadium on the 31st of August, Saturday, at 5:30, so it's the evening kickoff. And go to footballpredictions.net and you can find your local kickoff time, betting odds, and broadcast streaming options available in your area.
Yes, and yeah, like you said, Man City off to probably a fairly predictable start, but still they started with Chelsea in the Premier League and they beat them 2-0. We had predicted them actually winning 3-1, but yeah, at the end of the day, we predicted a Man City win in that game. And like we mentioned Ipswich earlier, we had City down for a 3-1 win at home to Ipswich. We beat them 4-1. So yeah, we were in on the both teams to score over 2.5 mark hit, and the outcome on that game. Man City also obviously played an extra game because he played that FA Community Shield game against Man United and beat them on pens, didn't they? But yeah, we had both teams to score in that game. Now for West Ham started the season with a defeat at home to Aston Villa. We had both teams to score over 2.5 in that game, but then they turned it around last week at Palace. We did have under and no both teams to score. But yeah, West Ham won 2-0 in that game. So the off to a winning start. And then midweek, they actually beat Bournemouth in the EFL Cup. So another Premiership team. So yeah, West Ham under the new manager finally off to got a win in the EFL Cup. So they'll probably be fairly happy at this point going into this game against Man City.
Yeah. And, just looking at an interesting stat here coming into this clash, West Ham haven't beaten Man City in the last 17 league meetings. What a shocking run.
Yeah.
And we think that's probably going to continue here. Yeah, Manchester City, you can never really tip against them unless it's going to be something at the end of the Champions League maybe. Both teams to score though is what we're liking in this one. You get odds of 1.67 for that. But the Man City win, you can only get odds of 1.4 unsurprisingly. But scoreline wise, we've decided it's going to be a 2-1 to City, and odds of that 9.5. Regarding what you think at the moment, everyone tends to agree that Man City wins. 74% of people like an away win for City. I mean, they're looking so strong. West Ham, obviously, in a bit of a transitional phase. 15% of people think that will be a home win. Probably many of those Hammers fans hoping. But the rest, the other 12%, like a draw. Anyway, 2-1 to City. Let's see how it goes. Next, we've got Chelsea, the big spending, many player Chelsea, 8th at the moment, who had a big win, obviously, in the Premier League against Wolves. Take on Palace, who are 17th. Kicks off, this is a Sunday game, 1st of September. It's the lunchtime, 1:30 kickoff in the UK. For this game, footballpredictions.net provides your local kickoff time, betting odds, and of course, all your available viewing options.
Yes, and as for these two teams, obviously Chelsea was off to a very tricky start to the season because they had to play Man City at home, and they went down to what we had predicted home defeat. They lost 2-0 in that game. They then went on to beat Servette in the Conference League qualifiers 2-0 before travelling to Wolves, where it all went a bit crazy in that second half. Well, actually it was two fairly crazy halves because the first half ended 2-2, had 4 goals in it. And then Chelsea scored all the goals
Yeah.
in the second half and beat them 6-2. So that was really a great result for Chelsea to go to Wolves and beat them. We had predicted them to win, but probably not as convincingly as 6-2. So yeah, Crystal Palace on the other hand, really, they finished last season really strong. And I think a lot of people had high hopes for Palace for this season in terms of how can they kick on. They've started the season with 2 defeats. They started with a 2-1 defeat.
So.
Yeah, they started with a 2-1 defeat at Brentford, and then they lost last week 2-0 at home to West Ham. Now, midweek, they did beat Norwich in the EFL Cup, and they did actually field a fairly strong side for that one. So it seemed like they just wanted to get that win. But yeah, traveling to Chelsea, who's coming with a 6-2 win at Wolves, it's not going to be an easy task for Palace.
Yeah, it was a weird game, that Wolves game. Like I said, it was very entertaining. And those Madueke goals, they all like carbon copy of each other as well. I don't know if you saw it, but yeah, it was quite a funny way that it ended up. But Wolves were far too open. Anyway, we think Chelsea will win this one as well. Being at home, of course. Have they turned the corner? Not really sure. We'll have to find out after about 6 or 7 games, I think. But yeah, we like Chelsea for the win. You get that at 1.6. Both teams to score is our prediction as well for this one, 1.57, so not so appealing. But if you do like a correct score, we've actually gone for 3-1, so we think they'll carry on in their high-scoring ways. 13 are the odds for 3-1, so very high.
Oh,
regarding what? Yeah, I might have a piece of that. Regarding who will win in the poll on our webpage for this, you can take part in that. 69% of people think Chelsea for the home win, and only 10% like Palace. A draw is not a bad option actually, but for a draw, 20% of people are liking the look of that. Let's see how Enzo Maresca's team can go in this one. Next up, we've got another Sunday game. This is the lunchtime one, 1:30. Newcastle, currently in 6th, who take on Tottenham, who are currently in 5th. And go to, of course, the footballpredictions.net web page for this game, and you find the local kickoff time for yourself, betting odds and broadcast streaming options available in your area.
Yes, and as for these two teams, I think a fairly predictable start for both, although Spurs probably would have had a win in that first game at Leicester, but start the season with a point. Leicester, promoted team with some momentum. And in that game, we did have both teams to score prediction correct. It was a 1-1 draw, and then Spurs went on to basically kick Everton out of the park 4-0. They beat Everton last weekend off to finally got a win on the board there. We predicted them to do that, and we had over 2.5 in that game. Now for Newcastle, winning start at home to Southampton, 1-0 may not sound like that convincing, but they did play with 10 men for most of the game. Now at Bournemouth, I think Newcastle were actually a bit lucky to not lose that game. They got a 1-1 draw in the end. It's a very late VAR decision against Bournemouth, so they could have lost it. We did have both teams to score correct in that game. And then midweek at Forest, Newcastle just edged through on penalties. There was a 1-1 draw there. So yeah, some tight games for Newcastle, and obviously St James's Park, never an easy place to travel to.
Indeed, and I think in that EFL Cup game there might have been an injury to Willock goal that got them into that penalty shootout. First 18 seconds he scored that goal. But yeah, like you said, Newcastle, St James's Park, never an easy place to go to. But we think it's going to be a high scorer, this one. We like both teams to score. You can only get, well, if you look at the history of these two teams when they play each other, it's often high scoring. But, yeah, you can only get 1.36 for both teams to score, so I'm not sure if that's worth having anything on. But for the full-time result prediction, giving it away, we like a draw. We can't really separate them. Tottenham are looking good. Newcastle are on the up. They had that win in the EFL Cup. That would have been a good boost for them. And they did play well. They've got a lot of fit players apart from Willock, who looked like he might be injured. They're potentially a bit lucky to have kept some of their players, because that Bournemouth game, there was a potential red carder. I think it was it Joe Linton who was like around someone's neck?
Yeah, and the goalie.
Yes, somehow he got away with that. But anyway, 4, you can get, for a draw, you can get odds of 4, which is huge for a draw, really.
Yeah.
Looking at a correct score prediction, we like 2-2, and you can get odds of that of 12, so massive odds. Regarding what people on our website currently voting think, 55% actually think Spurs will take this, and only 39% like Newcastle, even though it's at home. But yeah, I'm not sure. Let's see. If Spurs do win this game, I think that'll be quite a statement for their intention for the season. I know the game against Leicester, they played very, very well, but just couldn't somehow convert the chances. I'm not sure if Dominic Solanke will be back for this game. Not sure how serious his injury is that he sustained in that first game, but they're getting more and more options. I'm wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit more transfer activity that happens between now and that game. But then, of course, whoever does come in, if they do go in, wouldn't probably get to play anyway. But 6% of people actually like a draw in this. Only 6%. So people think that'll be a winner, generally speaking. But yeah, we're going for the score draw of 2-2. Next, we've got Manchester United taking on Liverpool. What a great game this could be. Sunday at Old Trafford, 4:00 kickoff. Find your local kickoff time, game odds and available broadcast streaming channels on our webpage for this on footballpredictions.net.
Yes, and as for these two teams, Arne Slot's Liverpool off to a winning start with 2 wins, against opposition that they would probably have anticipated they would beat anyway. So this will be the first really big test for Arne Slot. The first game, they beat Ipswich 2-0. Did struggle a bit in the first half, but yeah, second half they pulled themselves together, got the 2 goals, and we did predict them to beat Ipswich. We also predicted Liverpool to beat Brentford last week, and they beat them 2-0 as well. Now for Man United, winning start against Fulham, but then followed up by a defeat at Brighton.
Late one, wasn't it?
It was a late one, and we did have over 2.5, both teams to score in that game. We thought it was going to be 2-2, but yeah, again, we got the goals market correct. But yeah, defeat for United, not the ideal scenario of going into this game. And I think United fans are still sort of waiting to see, what are these new signings going to do? Because a lot of them are still not really played from the start. They've been on the bench, De Ligt, etc. So yeah, how do these new players fit into Ten Hag's style of play? Arne Slot and Liverpool, they seem to just kind of carry on from the club days. Not done any signings yet. And yeah, overall be interesting. But yeah, we predict more misery for Ten Hag.
We do, but I think that we've come up with a good tip for this one, which is both teams to score. 1.44 odds only, but I think that's fairly likely. I mean, Manchester United are quite leaky, but they've got good goal scoring capacity as well. And being at home, you would like to think they would score at least 1 goal. Maybe Bruno Fernandes or someone like that can pop up. Rashford needs a goal, doesn't he? But we think it's a Liverpool win. It's hard to argue against it. They have, like you said, just continued on in a Klopp-esque manner, haven't they? Arne Slot looks like he could be another great pick for them. But let's see. It is early days, but they are looking good. They are looking very good indeed. Liverpool to win, 1.9 are the odds you can get on that. So they are favourites. We've got also a correct score prediction here, which is a high scorer. We've gone for 1-3. So Manchester United 1, Liverpool 3. Great odds on that. You can get odds of 14 to 1 on that. Now, what do the people think? Well, in a poll on our webpage for this game, only 22% like Manchester United. And that's probably a good indicator. Liverpool, 63% of people believe they will come away with the win. However, Manchester United do surprise you from time to time. They're turning in a really good performance. If they're going to put one in, you'd think it would be at home. So yeah, let's see how this goes. But if you're going to watch these matches, or the one on Bet365 anyway, geolocation and live streaming rules do apply. 18+ gambleware.org, and make use of the bonus code FP365 if you haven't already got a Bet365 account.
Yes, and in the description section of this podcast, you'll see the links to the games we just covered, or simply head to footballpredictions.net. Once you're there, you'll find the online places to see the games from your location via streaming and TV channels. Our predictions for different betting markets, team news, as well as the best offers and odds.
We also produce these football podcasts for a number of competitions as well as the Premier League, and you can hear them all on podcast.footballpredictions.net or where you download your podcasts from. That's it. Thanks for listening. And for now, it's
goodbye.
Bye-bye.
A Football Predictions.